The blistering Phoenix sun should have been the worst thing burning my skin that afternoon. But the real fire came from inside my chest the moment I saw that black SUV parked in my driveway and the stranger standing in my own doorway, waving a document that would rip my entire life away. One forged signature, one family decision, and everything I had built was gone, taken by the people who were supposed to love me most. What they didn't know was that they had just handed a forensic auditor the perfect weapon to destroy them. The heat in Phoenix does not simply strike you. It swallows you whole, wrapping its scorching fingers around your throat until breathing feels like a privilege. Yet as I stood frozen in my own driveway, the sweat sliding down my back was ice cold. A freezing terror that had nothing to do with the 110-degree afternoon. A sleek black SUV I had never seen sat arrogantly where my car belonged. And in the doorway of the house I had paid for with years of late nights and double shifts, a man I did not recognize held a crisp official paper that made my stomach twist into knots. He was not angry. He looked genuinely confused, shifting his weight from one foot to the other as the desert wind tugged at his shirt. "Can I help you?" he asked, as though I were the one trespassing on private property. I raised a trembling finger toward the familiar beige stucco walls, my voice cracking like dry earth. That is my house." Inside my head, the thoughts screamed, "This is a mistake. Jet lag, wrong address. Please let it be anything but real." He glanced at the document, then back at me, pity softening his eyes. "Not anymore," he said quietly, the words landing like a hammer. "I closed on this place 10 days ago. I have the deed right here." The world tilted. He lifted the paper so I could see it clearly. Standard warranty deed, notary stamp, and at the very bottom, my own signature staring back at me. Except I had never signed it. I had never listed the house. While I was 5,000 miles away in Tokyo, buried in boardroom battles against fraudsters, someone had sold my future out from under me. My knees threatened to give way, but I locked them in place. "Mr. Henderson," he introduced himself gently, looked relieved when I took a step back instead of rushing forward. He pressed a crumpled scrap of paper into my palm. "They moved your stuff," he mumbled, voice awkward and low. "Said they put it in storage." I did not scream. I did not shove past him. He was not the villain. He was simply the weapon my own brother had chosen to drive straight through my heart. Climbing back into the rental car, I cranked the air conditioning to maximum, but the chill never reached the burning rage rising in my chest. 20 long minutes later, past strip malls and swirling dust devils, I reached the storage facility on the edge of town. A sad row of rusted, corrugated metal boxes baking in the open desert like forgotten ovens. My hands were slick as I heaved the rolling door upward. The blast of air that escaped was not merely hot, it was toxic, thick with the chemical stench of melting plastic and dissolving glue. The temperature inside had to be 120 degrees or more. My leather sofa lay slashed and scarred, dragged across concrete like garbage. The television was missing, but the stacked boxes in the far corner held what remained of my entire life. I opened the one marked office first. My hard-earned college diploma, the one I had fought for while Derek partied on our parents' dime, was warped into a useless U-shape, glass frames shattered. Yet it was the box labeled Grandma that finally cracked me open. I lifted the photo album with shaking fingers. The plastic sleeves had fused together in the brutal heat. When I tried to separate them, the ink lifted with the plastic, turning my grandmother's wedding pictures and every precious childhood memory into smeared, distorted ghosts of color. They had not simply stolen my house. They had incinerated my past to save $50 a month on climate control. Kneeling on that filthy concrete floor, sweat and tears mixing on my face, I felt something inside me die forever. The daughter who always forgave, always sacrificed, always kept the family peace, she melted away in that suffocating metal tomb. In her place rose someone colder, sharper, and far more dangerous. I wiped my eyes, stood up, and walked back to the rental car without another glance at the ruins. No hysterical call to Mom, no screaming match with Derek. Instead, I opened my laptop on the hot hood of the car. My family loved to brag that I was good with money whenever they needed a bailout, but they never once asked what my real job was. They assumed I was a boring accountant. They had no idea I was Sabrina, the forensic auditor who spent her days dissecting the hidden fortunes of cartels and crooked CEOs, tracing money through shell companies, offshore accounts, and crypto tumblers with surgical precision. My brother, the self-proclaimed crypto genius, had just left a trail a mile wide. I tethered my phone, logged into the Maricopa County Clerk's database, and with 3 clicks, found the power of attorney filing dated October 14th, the exact day I had been presenting a major fraud case in a Tokyo boardroom. The forged signature stared back at me like a dare. The sadness that had crushed my chest evaporated, replaced by a cold, steady rhythm pulsing through my veins. They thought they were smart. They thought I was just the pushover sister they could bully and bleed dry. They had no clue they had handed me the weapon that would end them. I sat in the driver's seat, engine idling for the air conditioning, and dialed my mother. Cynthia answered on the second ring, her voice clipped and irritated, as though my call had interrupted something far more important. "You're back?" she said, the words flat, no warmth, no welcome, just mild annoyance, like I'd arrived early to a party I wasn't really invited to. "I'm at the storage unit, Mom." I kept my tone even, staring at the melted brick of fused photographs on the passenger seat, their colors bleeding into one another like a watercolor left in the rain. "My house is sold. My things are destroyed. Tell me you didn't know." A long, theatrical sigh drifted through the line, the kind she always used when someone dared to inconvenience her. "Oh, stop it, Sabrina. Stop being so dramatic. Nobody destroyed anything. We moved it." "You sold my house," I repeated, each word deliberate, stripped of emotion. "That's a felony." "It was a family decision," she snapped, the polite mask shattering in an instant. "Derek was in a tight spot. He needed liquidity. He has a vision, Sabrina. He's building something real this time. Crypto logistics. He's going to be a millionaire by Christmas. He just needed seed capital." Seed capital? The phrase tasted bitter on my tongue. It was my home. I paid for every mortgage payment, every repair, every tax bill. "And you have plenty!" Her voice rose, sharp and accusatory. "Look at you. No husband, no kids. You're nearly 30, and you're running around Japan playing detective while your brother is trying to build a legacy. He needed that house more than you did. Men need to build empires. Women, you just need to settle down. Stop being so greedy. Greedy. The word landed like a slap. For 5 years, I had sent checks, roof repairs, medical bills, car payments, never once asking for thanks. Now, because I wanted to keep the one thing I had truly earned, I was the selfish one. I pressed the red button and ended the call without a word. No goodbye, no explosion, just silence. Then I dialed Derek. He picked up laughing, silverware clinking in the background, the sound of easy indulgence. "Sabrina!" he boomed, cheerful as if we were sharing an inside joke. "I heard you were back. Look, don't freak out. I did us a favor. I cashed out at the top of the market. You should be thanking me." "You forged my signature, Derek." He corrected me smoothly, tone sliding into condescension. "I managed our assets. You abandoned us, remember? You ran off to Tokyo to play career woman. You left that big house sitting there empty, wasted. Do you know how insulting that is? To have so much and just let it rot while your family struggles?" There it was, the leech's logic, twisted and airtight in his own mind. He couldn't admit theft. That would make him the villain. So he rewrote reality. My success became his deprivation. My savings became family property I was hoarding. And stealing my house became justice. Cognitive dissonance at its finest. In his story, he was Robin Hood. I was the greedy dragon sitting on gold. "I didn't abandon anyone," I said, voice dropping to ice. "I was working to pay for the house you just stole." "You don't need a 4-bedroom house, Sabrina," he shouted, entitlement flaring bright. "You're single. You're never there. I have a fiancé now. I have a future. I invested that money. I put it to work. When the returns come in next month, I'll cut you a check for your share. Until then, grow up and stop trying to ruin my moment." "Your share," I echoed softly, "as if you're doing me a favor. Where is the money, Derek?" "It's tied up," he dismissed. "In cold storage. You wouldn't understand the tech. Just wait for the payout. Now I have to go. We're celebrating." The line went dead. I stared at the blank screen. No fear in his voice. No remorse. Just smug celebration. He was somewhere right now, eating a meal funded by the equity I had bled for, laughing at his pathetic, greedy sister. I looked down at the ruined photos again. The last traces of sadness burned away, replaced by a clarity so razor-sharp it almost hurt. They weren't family. They were parasites. And you don't negotiate with parasites. You don't beg for apologies. You exterminate them. I wiped the sweat from my forehead, closed my eyes for exactly 3 seconds, and inhaled the stale, coffee-scented air of the rental car. When I opened them again, the sister was gone. The daughter was gone. Only the auditor remained. I didn't drive to my parents' house to scream. I didn't storm Derek's apartment. I drove to the nearest Starbucks, ordered the strongest black coffee they sold, and opened my laptop on a small corner table. They thought they were dealing with a heartbroken girl. They forgot they were dealing with a woman who hunted money for the Department of Justice. I started with the deed, pulled the digital record from the county recorder. The notary was Sarah Jenkins. A quick search turned up 2 prior complaints for improper notarization. Leverage. Then I scanned my passport entry stamp. October 14th, arrival in Tokyo. Flight manifest from my airline account confirmed it. I had been on a bullet train to Kyoto at the precise moment that forged signature was supposedly drying in Phoenix. Physics doesn't lie. You cannot be in two places at once. Next, the money. Derek claimed it was invested. I ran a credit sweep using his Social Security number, the one I knew by heart because I had co-signed his first car loan years ago. The transactions populated the screen in seconds. No cold wallet, no long-term crypto hold, just stupidity and greed. 3 massive transfers to a crypto exchange, then quick drains. $92,000 to a Scottsdale luxury dealership, Ford F-250 Super Duty, the CEO truck. $28,000 to a jeweler, a 3-carat diamond ring, presumably for the fiancé. $15,000 to a travel agency, first-class tickets to Cabo for 4. He wasn't building an empire. He was buying a fantasy life with my equity. Trucks, rings, vacations, all to purchase affection and status. I compiled everything: flight logs, passport scans, bank traces, proof of forgery. One clean PDF titled Evidence of Felony Fraud, Derek Riley. I didn't print at the hotel. I went to a copy shop and had it professionally bound. 45 minutes later, I walked into the 4th precinct. I didn't wait in the long line for petty disputes or parking tickets. I walked straight to the desk sergeant, laid the thick, bound document on the counter, and spoke clearly. I'm not here to file a report. I'm here to hand you a closed case. Grand larceny, wire fraud, aggravated identity theft. The total value stolen exceeds $800,000. The sergeant glanced up, bored at first. Another family spat, probably. Then he flipped open the binder. His eyes scanned the passport stamp placing me in Japan on the forgery date. They moved to the bank traces showing luxury purchases instead of investments. He saw the meticulous work of someone who had done this professionally, day in and day out. His posture changed. He reached for the phone without another word. 10 minutes later, I sat in Detective Miller's office. He didn't waste time asking if this was just a family misunderstanding or if we could work it out privately. He read the evidence, looked at me with new respect, and lifted his radio. We need a judge to sign off on this, he said. But with this paper trail, it won't take long. An hour, tops. I walked out of the precinct into the blinding Phoenix afternoon, a fresh copy of the arrest warrant paperwork tucked under my arm. It wasn't merely a complaint anymore. It was a precision-guided missile, and I knew exactly where to aim it. Tracking Derek was almost too easy. His new Ford F-250 Super Duty, the one he'd bought with my stolen equity, had a dealership-linked GPS. The Find My Vehicle feature was still active, tied to the Social Security number I knew by heart. The glowing dot on my phone map pulsed in the heart of downtown Scottsdale. The Sapphire Steakhouse. Of course it was the Sapphire. Gold leaf steaks, $50 sides of asparagus. A place designed for people desperate to prove they had finally made it. My brother, the man who had sold my future to fund his present, was there right now, celebrating. I texted Detective Miller the address. He's at the Sapphire. I'm going in. His reply came fast. Wait for us. I'll be inside, I typed back. I parked the rental a block away. The desert heat had finally eased into a cool, dry evening that carried the faint scent of citrus blossoms. I smoothed my wrinkled travel blouse, jeans, comfortable shoes, the same outfit I'd worn since Tokyo. no power suit, no dramatic entrance wardrobe. The truth didn't need a tuxedo. I stepped through the heavy glass doors. A wall of refrigerated air washed over me, carrying notes of aged beef, expensive cologne, and candle wax. Low lighting, intimate booths, a piano player in the corner gently butchering a jazz standard. And there they were, at the best table in the house, a large round booth commanding the center of the room. Derek sat at the head like a king, wearing a flashy new suit that didn't quite fit his shoulders. Next to him, the blonde fiancé laughed at something he said, diamond ring catching the light. My parents, Ronald and Cynthia, beamed across from them, happier, younger looking than I'd seen in years. Thick slices of Wagyu marbled with fat rested on their plates. An open bottle of wine, probably more expensive than my first car, sat sweating in an ice bucket. They were eating my house. I walked through the dining room. My footsteps sounded impossibly loud in my own ears, though no one else noticed. Conversations continued, forks clinked, laughter rose and fell. I reached the table and stopped directly beside Derek. He didn't see me at first, too busy pouring more wine for his fiancée. To the future, he toasted, raising his glass with a grin. To the future, I echoed, voice calm and level. Derek froze. The bottle clinked hard against the rim of the glass. His smile faltered, then collapsed entirely. "Sabrina," he squeaked, the word barely audible. My mother's fork hit her plate with a sharp clatter. "You shouldn't be here," she snapped. "Wait in the car." "I'm not going anywhere," I said quietly. "I came to return something." I placed the bound evidence on the table, right on top of their steaks. Passport stamp, flight manifests, bank transfers, dealership receipt, jeweler invoice, travel agency confirmation. Everything laid out in black and white. "That proves I was in Japan when you sold my house," I said, addressing the table. "You forged my signature. You stole the money." Derek's fiancée stared at him, confusion turning to shock. "You told me you sold crypto." "She's lying," Derek stammered. "I'm the victim of a felony." My father stood abruptly. "Leave now or be thrown out." "Try it." The restaurant fell silent. Heads turned. In the doorway behind me stood Detective Miller and two uniformed officers. "Derek Riley," Miller announced, voice carrying across the room. "You're under arrest for grand larceny, wire fraud, and aggravated identity theft." Handcuffs clicked shut. Derek's face drained of color. He looked at me, eyes wide with terror. "Sabrina, I'm your brother." "I know," I said. "That's why it's a felony." Then my mother detonated. She shrieked, lunged at an officer, clawed at his arm, hurled accusations at me, how I was cruel, ungrateful, destroying the family. When physical resistance failed, she clutched her chest and collapsed dramatically onto the booth seat, gasping about her heart, eyes rolling back for effect. The room's sympathy shifted. A moment ago, I had been the wronged party. Suddenly, I was the cold daughter killing her mother in public. I stepped closer, looked down at her. Her breathing was steady, color normal. One hand conveniently blocked the aisle, drawing every eye. She wasn't dying. She was directing the scene. "She's fine," I told the nearest officer, tone matter of fact. "I paid for her full cardiac workup at the Mayo Clinic last week. Perfect health. This is a tantrum." My mother snapped upright like a marionette, hissing curses under her breath. The room finally saw it, The performance, the manipulation. The spell broke. "Take him," I said to Miller. They dragged Derek out while he screamed for her to save him. My mother grabbed my arm, nails digging into skin. "Fix this! Who's going to take care of us?" Not love, not remorse, just dependency. "You should have thought of that before you ate my house," I said. Then I walked out into the cool night air. 48 hours later, the demand letter arrived, delivered by certified mail to my temporary hotel address, crisp envelope, official letterhead from some low-rent family law attorney my father had scraped together money to hire. Ronald's signature at the bottom claimed that the $20,000 they had contributed toward my down payment years ago was actually an investment, not a gift. In exchange for dropping the criminal charges against Derek, they demanded half the equity from the house sale, roughly $200,000. If I refused, they threatened to sue for unjust enrichment and breach of implied family agreement. I read the letter twice, standing in the middle of the sterile hotel room, fluorescent light buzzing overhead. Then I laughed, a short, cold sound that surprised even me. I called my father directly. No email, no lawyer, just his cell number, which I still knew by heart. He answered on the third ring, voice cautious. "Sabrina?" "You got the demand letter?" I asked, skipping every pleasantry. A pause. "We did what we had to do." "You go to court with this," I said slowly, letting each word sink in. "And you'll be admitting, on the public record, that the $20,000 was a loan or investment, not the gift you declared on the mortgage paperwork. That's federal mortgage fraud. Lying on a HUD-1 settlement statement and the gift letter to qualify for the loan. Penalties start at 30 years in prison and $1 million fine, per person." Silence stretched across the line, thick and heavy. I continued, voice flat. "The lender still has the original file. The feds love mortgage fraud cases. They're easy to prove when someone flips the script themselves. You want to roll those dice?" Another long beat, then quietly, "We'll reconsider." He hung up without another word. No lawsuit was ever filed. Derek remained in county jail because posting bail would have required putting assets at risk, assets they no longer controlled and couldn't afford to lose. My parents quietly sold their RV, the one they'd bragged about for years, and disappeared into some bland suburban rental far from Phoenix. No more flashy dinners, no more visions of crypto empires, just quiet, ordinary survival. I sold the house back to Mr. Henderson, legally this time, at market value, clean title, no forgeries. The closing was quiet, efficient, almost anticlimactic. He shook my hand and said he was sorry again for how it had all happened. I told him it wasn't his fault, and I meant it. With the proceeds, I bought a high-rise condo downtown. No garage, no storage unit, no extra rooms collecting dust. Just clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a balcony that caught the sunrise over the city instead of the desert glare. I unpacked only what still mattered. A few books, some clothes, a single framed photo I'd managed to salvage and restore digitally, the one of my grandmother smiling on her wedding day, ink intact again thanks to a specialist. Everything else stayed gone. I didn't miss it. Tonight I stand on that balcony, glass of water in hand, watching the sun melt into the horizon in streaks of orange and violet. The city hums below, traffic, distant laughter, life moving on without apology. For the first time in years, I'm not carrying a family on my back. I'm not the daughter stitching wounds she didn't cause. I'm not the sister writing checks to buy love that was never given freely. I'm just Sabrina. The price was high: blood ties severed, memories scorched, trust burned to ash. But standing here, breathing air that belongs only to me, I know I'd pay it again. Freedom isn't cheap. It never has been. If you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping yourself, if you've ever walked away from people who only remembered you existed when they needed something, you're not alone. You're safe here.